Hello everybody, this is Upper Groove Racing, and today we're going to be reacting to some of your hot takes about anything NASCAR. Kyle Larson wins back-to-back championships, 4 total in his career, and ends up with 50-plus career wins. I mean, at this rate, I'd be surprised if he doesn't get 50 career wins. He definitely could win 4 championships in back-to-back, but right now, where the playoffs are set up, where it just comes down to one race, which, I mean, it's really starting to get to me. I don't think he can really do that. It's a lot less likely than it should be. If NASCAR does go away from that, I think the likelihood would become a lot higher for that to happen. Denny can't close the championship and never will. I think this year, if he doesn't win it, he won't. And yes, he hasn't won yet, but he's flying under the radar, and that has happened with a lot of champions in recent memory. And you don't know how he will adapt to the next gen car either. Jimmie Johnson is the greatest of all time. He's raced some of the biggest competition. He was competitive for 90% of his career. He won 5 consecutive titles and won from 4 variations of the chase. He won so much NASCAR would change the system. Plus, the end of his career does not tarnish his accomplishments at all. People saying that are ridiculous. Petty did nothing in his final 10 years. Nobody holds that against him. Every driver has bad seasons, and Johnson is no different, but he's, in my opinion, the greatest, definitely a legend. I'm going to buy this take. I do agree that Jimmie Johnson is the greatest of all time, considering how many point systems, the competition level he faced, as well as the fact that he won in 3 different types of cars. Allmendinger's Indy win was more of a surprise than Michael McDowell's Daytona 500 win. I'm going to sell this one. Every time you go to a road course since 2014, you think of AJ Allmendinger as a contender to win. Obviously, the last 2 years, he did not race at all, although he does spin a lot. And I would say that McDowell is one of the better super speedway racers, but still I think that Allmendinger winning at Indianapolis was not nearly as much of a surprise, considering that he has won before at a road course. Christopher Bell and Ty Gibbs are going to be the Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch of 15 years from now, and neither will leave JGR. I'm very confident about this on Ty Gibbs' front, considering he is the grandson of Joe Gibbs and how much speed he has thrown in the Xfinity Series at such a young age. And I'll also buy it for Christopher Bell too, especially considering that some of Bell's better runs have been on road courses, and NASCAR is tending to look into getting to more road courses, and the next gen car is set up a lot for those. My hot take, Kevin Harvick and Ryan Ross. The only real disadvantage they've had this year in terms of speed and competitiveness is the 550 horsepower package. I gotta disagree with you there. I think it's just an organization thing with Stewart-Haas Racing. That's why they're so slow, as Team Penske are still very good and solid. And no other SHR drivers even in the top 20 in points, and it's also happened pretty fast too. I think that Ryan Preece should become a way better driver if he followed the John Hunter Nemechek route and comes back to Cup in a few years. I'm going to sell that one, considering that I believe he's considerably older than John Hunter Nemechek, and he already kind of did that racing for JGR in the Xfinity Series in, I believe, 2017 and maybe 2018 as well, before coming to Cup. And he did race a few Cup races in like 2015 and then went back down. He may have a better career, kind of like Brett Moffitt, but I don't think he'll ever get a good opportunity in Cup. Kentucky should get a race date again. It has produced some of the most memorable finishes from the past few years and gives the fans in the Louisville, Cincinnati area a race to go to that's not far away. Also, Homestead should be the championship again. I agree with the Homestead, but not with the Kentucky unless they change it into a short track. The great finishes were mostly because it was overtime with this 550 package. The regular season championship does not get as much credit as deserved. I'm going to agree with you there, Austin. The regular season championship shows who's really the best driver as opposed to the current playoff format. And I think a lot of people just forget that it exists, and we're going to have a great battle with Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin heading down the stretch. They were tied with 3 races to go. Larson is up at 22 points and has one of the stronger tracks, Michigan, but then there's Daytona. Alex Bowman is the worst Hendrick driver and will go winless for the next 2 years in the 48, with the rest of Hendrick getting at least 2 wins this season. Well, I do agree that Alex Bowman has been the worst driver on Hendrick Motorsports, and I don't think he deserves 3 wins this season. Come on, really? I think this is a bit far-fetched that he'll go winless for the next 2 years. I think that would require a lot of organization struggle adjusting to the next gen car, but then you also add at least 2 wins this season, and Hendrick Motorsports are the best team in NASCAR right now, so I am going to sell this. If Daytona really is the crown jewel, make Daytona the last race of the season for the championship. We all know NASCAR would never do it, considering an accident taking every contender out. The Daytona 500 being the first race of the season is super special and is the biggest event to kick off the season. It's just a tradition that NASCAR has. I don't think that would be wise for NASCAR to do to further anger their fan base. But the summer one is currently the finale for the regular season, which I absolutely love. And if NASCAR does go to where it doesn't all come down to one race, even if it's like 4 races or 3 or something, I would like to see Daytona be the finale as well as the beginning. That would be kind of interesting. It's kind of bookends the season, have a day race, the 500, and then the night race at the end of the season. Although that might be during Florida's rainy season, which you want to avoid. I think Texas is a track with good potential if we put some tender loving care in it, and Darlington needs to lose a day from their throwback track, along with double headers like Indy Oval and Indy Roval. Texas should go down as one of the worst tracks of all time, and the only way that maybe something good could come out of it is if you make it Texas Roval. Well, that's a hard sell for me. And so far, Darlington having a second date, I believe, has worked out well. This is probably the worst one I've seen, that Richard Petty is the worst NASCAR driver ever. Dale Jr. doesn't deserve to be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. I mean, Carl Edwards is a whole lot better than him, and he isn't in there, so I'm going to agree with you on that. NASCAR should run more road courses than ovals, and the season should only be 30 races long. Also, there should be more stages during races. There's already enough road courses as they are. I do think, I'm not against NASCAR shortening the season, and then the stages, I mean, are the perfect amount in my opinion, but I don't think they should have cautions for them. Kevin Harvick will pull a smoke 2011 and win the championship. I like this one, but I'm not going to buy it. I think that just because Harvick just hasn't run up at the front as much as Tony Stewart even did 10 years ago, I just don't see the Ford team having a deep run. Austin Dillon's a very consistent driver, and he always gets overlooked. You know what? I agree with that a lot, especially this year. He's currently 13th and only 15 points behind Alex Bowman. He's very consistent, but that's kind of his MO. He just kind of stays right back there, always having the solid finishes, but never running up towards the front. And I feel like Tyler Reddick has been similar to that this year. Racing should be as focused as much on the speed of the car and the skill of the driver as possible. In an ideal world, aerodynamics and pit strategy do not exist, and a similar gun goes hand in hand. Oh boy, here comes the mods. Super speedways are the worst kind of track. You know, I can tell that these are both from racing purists. I don't see anything wrong with pit strategy, and it requires people to think outside the box and strategize. I mean, I like playing board games. Maybe it has some sort of bias to do with that, but I'm not a very big fan of aerodynamics playing a huge role in how the cars handle, and I hope the next gen car kind of minimizes that to some extent. And then on the hands of super speedway, it's uniquely NASCAR, and as long as it just remains 4 or now 6 if Atlanta ends up working out a super speedway, which I don't think it will, as long as it's special and you don't try to force it on other tracks, it's special races and they tend to get more views. Now, if you don't enjoy seeing crashes, I don't know what to tell you, or close racing, now maybe you say it's not due to much of skill, which is why you kind of keep them into lower leverage, maybe is the ideal, but you still want to have them there. I don't know if we'll ever go back to having rookie sensations that are consistent and win their first season. I buy a sake with one exception. Next year, both Austin Cindric and Justin Haley I think will do very well, considering they're both going to very good teams, Colleague and Team Penske. Colleague is a good team. Look at their Xfinity Series program. They've already won in a part-time season. And then they've both had a lot of cup experience, especially Justin Haley. He's running basically the full season this year, and Cindric has had a lot of speed, especially at the road courses. And remember, next year there's a next-gen car, which levels the playing field for everyone. Everyone has to learn the new car, and maybe younger drivers can adapt better because they're just younger. It's harder to teach old dogs new tricks. I'm probably going to make a video about that, but other than next year, I do agree with that. Harvick stays a one-time champion. LA becomes only a 2-time champ. Cole Custer loses his ride for Matt Benedetto after riding 20th for 2 years straight. I gotta agree with all of them except Chase Elliott. Obviously, Kevin Harvick is getting up there in age, and with the next gen car, I don't see any championship runs coming from Kevin Harvick. And then Cole Custer, he struggled the most out of SHR, honestly. And when you're being outperformed by your rookie teammate Chase Briscoe by that much, I don't see, unless the next gen car he's a whole lot better, I don't know if he'll be able to keep his ride. And then obviously Chase Elliott, he's already won a championship at 25. He's younger than a few guys like Briscoe and Bell, and he's already on the best team, Hendrick Motorsports, with more road courses coming to the schedule, and that being his specialty. I really don't see him having fewer than 3 or 4 championships when he calls it quits. If Dale Sr. didn't die, he would have 8 championships. I disagree, considering that his final championship 7 years prior, he was already a 3rd or 4th oldest driver to win a championship. Wouldn't see him pulling off an 8, unless you would count a DEI championship. David Pearson is the greatest driver of all time because he ran 5 full-time seasons and won 3 championships. I mean, when you only do race those 5 full-time seasons, and I know it was kind of different back in the day, but it's harder to get. When you have such a short peak, it's harder to get a good measure as to how good you were. And throughout their careers, Petty was better than Pearson, and they raced in the same era. And you can't be the greatest of all time when you're not the greatest in your era. Chase Elliott wouldn't be in the Cup Series if Spingate didn't happen. I think this is one of your crazy what-if scenarios, but I disagree. Considering he's the son of the most popular driver of all time, and in his 2013 truck season, he had an average finish of 9.7, he would have had a chance somehow to prove his talent and would have been able to get to the Cup Series. James Davison and Cody Ware are good enough drivers, but don't have good enough equipment. This is especially true of James Davison, but also of Cody Ware. Those two are the best Rick racing cars and are usually better than the 78 and the Double O car. I hope that Rick Rivera has 2 solid cars and their 2 full-time drivers are Davison and Ware, and we can see what they'll do. Matt DiBenedetto is one of the most overrated drivers in NASCAR. Cody Ware is too overhated, would be a chase contender on decent equipment. Richard Petty is the GOAT of NASCAR. Those farmers he raced against would have run circles around most of today's Cup rosters, and Las Vegas is the worst track on the schedule. I mean, I do agree with Matt DiBenedetto. Although he did make the playoffs last year, I think the biggest reason why he is overrated is that he is so popular, and rightfully so, I'd say. And if he were actually good, I'd say he deserves to be NASCAR's most popular driver over Elliott or someone else. I already talked about Cody Ware, but you can make a good case that Richard Petty is the greatest NASCAR driver of all time. Personally, I think it's Jimmy Johnson. And I don't think that the drivers back then were anywhere close to as good, except for a lot of the cream of the crop like Petty, but a lot of them would not nearly be as good as a lot of today's Cup drivers. And then Las Vegas, maybe it's located in the worst city of all tracks, but it is definitely not the worst track. It's one of the better 1.5-mile tracks, as it consistently has side-by-side action with multiple lanes where you can race. John Hunter Nemeth GOAT is a future Cup champion. Considering that most of JGR's core is old and their only main prospect right now that may be better is Ty Gibbs, if he can end up at Joe Gibbs Racing, I think he will get it done, and I do think he will end up at Joe Gibbs Racing. However, I only think he'll win 1 championship, exactly. They should get rid of the Bristol dirt races. Dirt races shouldn't be on the Cup schedule. Now, I don't think they should turn Bristol into a dirt track, but I do think they should have dirt races, considering it's one of the more grassroots things, and people love it. In the Bristol dirt race, they should use dirt late model cars, not asphalt stock cars like NASCAR Cup cars. I disagree. While maybe you can make some minor modifications for dirt, you should keep the car the same. Collie will win a Cup champion within 5 years. It all depends on who they get for drivers, of course, but I don't see Justin Haley as a Cup champion. He's not good enough. And even still, if they do get a champion level driver, are they really going to get that high that quickly? Tyler Reddick is a championship contender. Reddick lacks the playoff points, and while he hasn't finished outside the top 20 since Atlanta and has 11 top 10s in the 18 race span, he just hasn't shown that he can run up at the front. Denny Hamlin gets hated too much, yes. Kurt Busch's peak was better than Kyle's. That could not be further than the truth. This is absolute garbage. We can say that Kurt Busch's peak was from 2002 to 2005, and Kyle Busch's was from 2015 to 2019. The least amount of wins that Kyle Busch had in his span was 4, and that was the most that Kurt Busch got to. Kurt Busch got that twice, and Kyle Busch had that once. Meanwhile, Kyle Busch's worst average finish in that span was 11.5, and that was still better than Kurt Busch's best during his peak. Bubba Wallace out after one more year at 2011 after being outperformed by Kurt Busch in 2022. While I do agree that Kurt Busch will outperform Bubba, it is mostly due to a lot of experience, and let's be honest, remember, Kurt Busch is a NASCAR champion, and while his peak may not have been as good as his brothers, he's still really good. Meanwhile, Bubba also has a lot of money behind him. Now, it may be happen that social justice issues are not trendy, but still he will have a lot of money behind him, and money talks. Jimmie Johnson will come back in a couple of years and will win a couple of races. This is another awful take. Well, he made the comeback. There's no way that he can win when he didn't win from 2017 Pocono through the end of 2020, when he has to learn a new car as well, and he's older. Martin Truex Jr. isn't as good as people think. He only won one race in Michael Waltrip Racing Equipment, while his teammate Clint Bowyer won multiple races and one of the championship contender took Cole Pearn to make Truex good. Well, it also took Toyota too, and Cole Pearn definitely did help a lot, and maybe that's when he truly began to grow and realize his full potential, because he does have 3 wins this year with James Small, although he is only 7th in points. I think it was mostly artificially due to Cole Pearn that Truex was ever at the top and being clearly the best driver. Jeb Burton is better than Harrison Burton. While Harrison has done better in almost every category except wins and average finish, Jeb Burton's win this season came at Talladega, and Colleague Racing have an amazing super speedway program this year, and this is a down year for Harrison Burton. Remember, he won 4 races last year at the age of 20. And while JGR equipment may be better than Colleague, it's not that much in Xfinity. He digging his out of NASCAR by 2027. Ty Gibbs win 2 races in his rookie season in Cup. Jimmie Johnson would have passed Jeff Gordon's win record if he didn't crash at Pocono in 2017, maybe won the 8th title that year. I like these ones as I'm on the fence with all of them. I don't think that Hailie Deegan will be completely out of the sport in just 6 years' time, considering that she'll still be in her mid-20s. As for Ty Gibbs, it depends on whether or not he goes to JGR first or 2011 then the JGR. If he goes to JGR first, maybe he'll get it done, but it probably won't be in the first year of next gen. And also, it depends on whether or not he gets a lot of Cup starts beforehand, as that's a big advantage that Cindric and Justin Haley will have. The other thing is that the gap between Xfinity and ARCA is not nearly the gap between Xfinity and Cup. As for Jimmie Johnson, the cliff in performance that he faced was surprising, and considering he was only 11 wins away from Jeff Gordon's 94, I think it would have happened. 8th title, maybe he already was in his 40s, so I don't think that would have happened. The regular season champs should get an automatic spot in the Final Four, and the last race should be on a track that's not in the regular season, complete one-off. I see what you're trying to do with the regular season championship getting a bye, and while it does seem like a good idea, they almost always make it anyways, and then you still have to have it where they have to earn it to some extent in the playoffs, those 9 races, because that is a good chunk of the season. And the complete one-off, that could potentially avoid where the top 4 are always the championship 4, kind of how last year was, as opposed to Homestead where that didn't always happen. So maybe that's why, and then it also shows who has the best stuff and not just the best notes. Chase Elliott will leave Hendrick Motorsports before William Byron. I think Elliott's a little bit better driver, and I don't think he'll ever leave Hendrick Motorsports. He seems a bit more loyal than William Byron might, in my estimation, but that could be wrong. The only way this does happen is if Chase Elliott for some reason leaves, or if he just retires before Byron does. Then I guess that would mean that. But I do think William Byron's more likely to leave, in my opinion. NASCAR's next big 3 will be Ty Gibbs, Kyle Larson, and Kyle Busch. This is basically the future, the present, and the past. I think Kyle Busch is kind of already past his prime, and I don't think he'll ever go back up there again, at least while Ty Gibbs is coming up to his prime. So I don't think that will happen. Could we see Ty Gibbs, Kyle Larson, and say Chase Elliott or Austin Cindric? Yeah, that could be possible, but I don't think Kyle Busch would be the third one. You've made it to this end of this video. Thank you for watching. If you have made it to the end, you're the best. I don't know what else to tell you. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, make sure to leave a like and maybe I'll do another one of these. I don't know.